Okay, before I get into the gist of this video, just a quick word. Sad news that Pernell Whitaker has passed away. Pernell Whitaker was one of the greatest defensive boxers of all time, one of the great welterweights of the 1980s. In many great bouts, he was hit by a vehicle apparently in Norfolk, Virginia, only 55 years old. So that's sad news and a big loss to the boxing world. So rest in peace, Pernell Sweet Pea Whitaker. Now, I want to talk a little bit about this latest Trump controversy, if you can keep track. Seems every week there is a new Trump Twitter controversy. Um, I'm disappointed to see some people who really should know better defending Trump. I mean, people that I am acquainted with. So, basically, Trump had a Twitter rant against four US congresswomen: Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Presley, and Rashida Tlaib. Apologies if I'm mispronouncing any names there. And he basically said if these women don't like America, they can leave and go back to the countries to where they came from. Go back to where you came from. In fact, the exact quote was, "Go back and help fix the totally broken and crime-infested places from which they came." His remarks have been widely condemned as racist and xenophobic. Um, this is classic Trump. Incidentally, the women themselves have said that this is a distraction. They're calling for Trump to be impeached, but they believe this is just a distraction to try and get people away from the real issues. Addressing reporters, just from the BBC, the four women known as the Squad all said the focus should be on policy and not the president's words. So they're kind of rising above it. Now, just a disclaimer before I continue here. Um, I'm not coming out in favor of their politics. Um, they definitely tend well to the left, and I would certainly take issue with some of the positions that these women have. But to those who are saying it's not racist, let me ask a question. Fact one: three of the women were born in the United States, with the exception of Ilhan Omar. So they're American citizens. And here's another thing to consider. If this is just about politics, if this is just about ideology, why is Trump not using the same line with Bernie Sanders, who's a self described democratic socialist? And he's actually running for president, and he's a serious contender. So why is Trump not telling Sanders to go back to where he came from? I believe his origins are in Vermont. I think you'd have to be pretty gullible to think that at the very least there isn't a real jingoism about Donald Trump. I mean, this is a man who, for years, pushed the utter lie of Obama not being an American citizen. I mean, at what point how much is Trump going to get away with in terms of what is seen to be acceptable? Because it's very clear what he's doing here is pitching to his pretty jingoistic base. And I'm not talking about all Trump supporters. I'm talking about those who do think that Muslim Americans or BME Americans are not really Americans. I mean, there is unquestionably the fact that during this campaign, Trump pitched to some pretty far right tendencies. I mean, my goodness, he was endorsed by David Duke and then claimed to not know what the KKK was all about. How naive do you have to be to think that there isn't a really cynical game that Trump is playing here? And I'm not some sort of regressive leftist who thinks there should be open borders or that criticism of Islam equates to anti Muslim bigotry. And that's where I would disagree with these women because I've no doubt they will shout Islamophobia no matter what the situation. But when it comes to Trump, the man is a plain bigot. Condemnation's been widespread. Theresa May has joined the chorus of condemnation. Jeremy Hunt has. He pointed out that his children are half Chinese, and if anyone in this country said go back to where you're from, he would take issue with that as a father. That line is a very ugly pitch. Go back to where you came from. Why can't Trump just criticize their politics? I think that would be totally valid. They've criticized him, so he would have a right to criticize them in return. But go back to where you came from. When three of these women were born in the United States, they are American citizens. I don't know how anyone could justify this. And the fact is, even conservative Republicans have reached out to them saying that they're sorry and they're distancing themselves from the president. This is just in keeping with Trump's utter, crude, crass pitching to the lowest sense of decency. There is no decency about this president. This guy is not a statesman. And I'm sick and tired of people making excuses for him. You can talk about the biased media, you can talk about the regressive left, and there's a lot of valid arguments